Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I'm Jamie White, your host for tonight, along with my co-host Chad Thomas. That's that guy, or that guy. Depending
One
what
of those
side
ways.
where he's at. I don't know. He's on my left. So, hey, Chad, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much, Jamie. How are you?
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday and it's allergy season.
Well, gosh, yes, yeah. So bear with me. I might just, totally, my face might explode here any second. I don't know. I've spent the weekend crawling around in my yard de-weeding. That's a term I'm going to use from now on, de-weeding.
The weeding.
Um, and it was a hot mess. So I'm trying to recover physically and sinus wise.
Mm-hmm.
So and then everything's blooming and it's almost summer and life is good. But
Mm-hmm.
man, I don't remember this happening before.
Yep. And it's the most Mondayest Tuesday ever.
It is. It is. I was out walking the dog earlier, and then the lady said "Happy Tuesday," and I looked at her funny because I'm like, "It's well, it is Tuesday." I thought it was Monday.
I'm glad you didn't forget it was Tuesday.
That's true. That's true. Well, yeah, I get enough prompts, via the socials. So I had an episode happening tonight,
Okay.
um, per Facebook about an hour ago. So hopefully some other folks join us tonight too. So, but we shall see. How was your week? Anything exciting happen other than a holiday and it feels like a Monday on a Tuesday?
No, not really. It was hot and humid, and I did some yard work at Dad's house, and
Nah.
I get rid of my yard,
Yeah,
and then I
and
go work at
you
my
gain
dad's
another
yard.
one.
Yep.
Ah.
So
Hey,
so
good evening, Jim. Welcome and thanks for coming.
so.
It's funny like that, and well, we had to have a yard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I said, I'm going to need help because it's a wraparound and, it's got all this stuff. We actually technically have like three yards, a big one and then a small side one and a small back one. And I'm 90%, 95% in the one who does it all. So, there's some weeding at the front flower beds, which is great. That
Mm-hmm.
happens elsewise, but yeah, no. Hopefully you mean your yard and not each
Yeah,
other.
yeah. I hope so.
Hey, Bert, welcome. Um, yeah, that's the next project. I made a bed of like what was supposed to be a wildflower bed that never materialized because my partner in crime didn't help. Um, and then put this like stone thing down through, like a rain thing, and now I got to tear that whole thing up. And I'm just gonna turn it back into yard. What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Just mow
Okay.
it. I got to put a tarp thing down and around the side of the house, move all the stone over. So if you're not doing anything, you're welcome. Anybody, you're all welcome to come over. I got beer. I'm sure I can find some pizza. It's not a move, I promise. Um, You'll save your backs. But yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks of a project going on. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, yeah, Heather, I totally get it, and don't worry, I understand. I have never been as sore as I have been crawling around my yard for a couple of days, weeding and everything, hands and knees, shoulders bent over.
mm-hmm.
You can't see the back of my neck, but it's bright red from sun and for getting sunscreen. This Irish kid doesn't do well. I'm surprised I didn't
Right.
burst into flames. So
Hey, it could be worse. You could have poison ivy. We talked about this earlier.
yeah, yeah, we know somebody who does. So
Yep.
we wish a speedy recovery there to our
So,
dear friend Dave. So
but
um,
anyway, people aren't here to talk. Listen to us talk about
yeah,
yard work, Jamie.
there were old men complaining about our yard work, right? No, we're here to talk about the Dark Watchers. So Chad, what do you know about the Dark Watchers?
They're from California. That's about all I know.
So they surf, right?
Yep,
They eat
exactly.
avocados,
Yep,
and they call everybody dude,
exactly. Right.
right? Okay, that's like every Californian ever. So, as a former Californian, I can say a lot of that stuff is actually true, but it depends where you live.
Hmm.
Oh
So
no,
anyway, so I'm here
yeah,
to learn, Jamie. You're going to teach me about the Dark Watchers.
yes, I am. So let's go to the first slide. So where are we in the world? So this is Central Coast of California. The shaded area in the left map is a highlight of the Santa Lucia Mountains, which is a range that roughly goes to maybe about an hour south of San Francisco in the Santa Cruz area, all the way down to Big Sur and a little beyond. It is a wild. mountainous area still. People are encroaching like everything else into this area, but it is still largely unpopulated. A lot of hiking trails, stuff like that. The outdoorsy person, can get in and get out of there relatively easy without being hindered by modern stuff. But and then the east side are some of the towns like Salinas and Hollister. Believe it or not, Hollister is a town, not a store. Been there, I can prove it.
Okay.
But there's still it's a very agricultural area out that way as well in the lands on the east side of the mountains. So go next slide. So here's what it looks like, So, and you can imagine, in back in the day, with not a lot of roads and a lot of horseback, a lot of walking, and hardly any carriages. Folks were huffing and puffing through these mountains, trying to find their way around and through them. The Dark Watchers have been there all this time. So, a quick overview. Dark Watchers are considered shadowy beings that are found in the peaks of the Santa Lucia Mountains in Central California, Santa Cruz, basically through Big Sur, as I said. Initially documented by Spanish explorers, they appear to be up to 10-foot tall men in sinister-looking hats and capes or cloaks. They often quickly disappear when noticed. Next slide. Here we are. So, halo around, figure of a person, kind of, the appearance of a body, arms, a head, quite something there. So the history of all of this, and going back a bit in time. Originally, stories of the Dark Watchers were passed down among the Chamush people, a tribe of indigenous Americans. The Chamush told of the presence of dark figures in the mountains, but they were not threatened by them. The earliest written documentation of Dark Watchers comes from the Spanish explorers in the early 1700s. These explorers regularly saw the Dark Watchers and called them Los Vigilantes Oscuros, literally meaning the Dark Watchers, and the tag has stuck through all of this time. As Anglo settlers began staking claims in the area, the sightings continued. In 1937, so we'll fast forward about 150 years or 200 years or so, the poet Robinson Jeffers drew inspiration for the Dark Watchers in his collection, Such Counsels You Gave to Me and Other Poems. Jeffers wrote, he thought it might be one of the Watchers who are often seen in this length of coast range from that look human to human eyes, but certainly are not human. They come from behind ridges to watch, and he was not surprised when the figure turning toward him in the quiet twilight showed his own face. Then it melted and merged into the shadow beyond it. So the idea that what they're seeing even is themselves reflected back upon themselves. So next slide. So I think as adults, we probably all had to sit through a English lit class somewhere in life, either high school or college somewhere. So we've probably heard of a guy named John Steinbeck by now. Chad?
Yep.
Right? Okay. I can tell you from living in this area, you can't not talk about Steinbeck because he's from nearby Salinas. As I mentioned, it's on the east side of the mountains. He was enamored with the Dark Watchers. And in his 1938 short story, Flight, a character, due to killing a man, is forced to flee into the Santa Lucias and sees a black figure leering at him down from a nearby ridgetop. But he looked quickly away, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. Before fleeing from the scene, the character's mother told him the following. Always say your prayers. Take good care of your horse. This is 1938, so cars weren't prevalent yet.
All right.
And when thou comest to the high mountains, if thou seest any of the dark watching men, go not near them or try to speak to them. Steinbeck added, no one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and to never show interest in them. Next slide. So Steinbeck had a son, and his name was John. And in 2014, so about 10 years ago, his name was Thomas, not John. Thomas Steinbeck co-authored a book titled In Search of the Dark Watchers, this book, with local artist Benjamin Brody, about the legendary Watchers who roam the wilds of Big Sur, which is at the bottom end of the mountain range. Thomas shares tales of dark watchers that have been shared with him from his youth through adulthood, living in and around the Santa Lucia Mountains. His grandmother, Olive Hamilton, and other lifelong Central Coast residents are cited as the sources. I mean, if you can't believe your grandmother, right? Who can you believe?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Nana knows best. Brody provided artwork that was inspired by his residency in the area, and the stories were supplied by Steinbeck. Next slide. This is kind of the idea of the artwork. It's really actually rather a beautiful book. Fortunately, I could not get my hands on a copy because it's $55 just for a paperback version, much less the dynamic hardcover that would really show these off. So if we ever start making money doing this, Chad, maybe I'll buy it. But, and that's a big if.
Right.
Huge if. So not in the budget right now.
No, nope.
So, but the idea is that they collected stories through the book, and the area has there's ranches now because there's farms. There's all kinds of folks who are lifelong, generational residents of the area. So the stories that get passed down, like the oral traditions, are getting passed down, and these are the stories that they're telling in this book. So it's quite interesting. Next slide. So another image. So what do you do if you come across a dark watcher? Well, do not make contact. We got that earlier, right? Do not try to speak to them either. If you garner their attention, it is believed that you will disappear into oblivion. Like not just, a little.
Not just disappear, but
you're gone. I mean, you're poof. Like, the Bugs Bunny thing where the Roadrunner disappears in the clouds there. That's what's going to be left of you when you're done trying to hang out with the Dark Watchers. To appease them, you should bring a gift of flowers, fruit, or nuts. And it said when gifts are left while hiking through the mountains, they are gone when the hiker returns. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you leave fruit and nuts out in the woods.
You don't think it's the Dark Watchers taking it?
Maybe. Not saying no, but, there's a lot of other wildlife out there. Next slide. So this isn't just a made-up story. Like, people are actually documenting it. And, Monterey County is a big area, covers most of this range. There's a few other, communities and so forth. But it's being documented through the years, and the stories have been captured and collected. So a lot of people are talking about it, and people in the area know about it. But what could it be? Okay, next slide. So a physical explanation could be related to moisture in the higher elevations. There's this stuff we can't see. This is not unusual too. Like we had the orbs episode, right? There's moisture floating. It's close to the lens, and the IR of the camera picks it up, has no depth perception, so it appears to be an orb or a floating thing when it's really just droplets of moisture or dust in the air. In this case, moisture, and there's always moisture at high altitudes anyway, vapor clouds and so forth as it's settling down. And the shadows, this also could be shadows created by people or large trees that are cast against either the elevated fog or low-lying clouds. So hence you get that kind of halo as well, because you've got moisture and cloud back, something like a tree, which is that peaked kind of person figure. In this area, there's a lot of fir trees as well. So they would have that Christmas tree kind of point to them, not the deciduous trees that we're used to with the full blossom blooms that look bulbous at the top. There's a phenomenon that's known as the Brockton Spectre, which is named after a similar experience that occurs along the Brockton Mountains, in a peak in the Harz Mountain range in Germany. Most images have rainbow-like halos. Most dark watcher sightings occur in the late afternoon when shadows would be naturally longer, or early in the morning as well. Dark watchers appear and disappear quickly, which could be the effect of wind blowing mist around. So there's some things that it could be. Another explanation, and this is one that comes up with us all the time, is pareidolia. The idea that our brains are trying to process something that it sees, but it doesn't make sense what it actually is, so we try to create it to be something else. I always use the kind of funny thing of, it's like, you're looking at a burnt piece of toast and you see a face in it. That idea, or the Rorschach test, where you get a bunch of ink blots and you're asked to tell what you see in it. And honestly, everybody says, what's this, it's that, and the other thing, it's a butterfly, it's a horse. You're always trying to figure out what those images could create, and it would be then that we know about, instead of just kind of like, well, I don't know. We want to make sense of the unsensible things.
Right.
And it could also be a part of people's imagination. Not to say that what we're seeing in these images is not real. It certainly seems to be so. But the idea of making it be something that it's not, we want it to be something abnormal and make it normal. So more than just in periodola. Another thought is that since the appearance of dark watchers happens at higher elevations, there could be oxygen deprivation, which is could cause an hallucination, especially if one is already cued to the possibility that dark watchers may appear. Exertion or exhaustion could also be contributing factors to sightings. These are low mountains in the scheme of mountains, in the sense like the Rockies or somewhere, but in the area they are the highest elevation. So at 6,000 or 7,000 feet, that's still a pretty big area to cover. And given that dark watchers often disappear soon after being seen, it implies that they may have been a shadow of either a person or a tree or a rock formation, something like that. And the sun has changed position, causing the figure to, quote, disappear. Next slide. I like this one because it seems like it's hovering, and it's really kind of cool. It's a neat optical. So, and just to conclude it all, the thought of all of this, if you go back to the episode we did on the mystery spot, I lived in Santa Cruz, California, right at the base of the Santa Lucias. I had the opportunity to hike these mountains quite a lot. Basically having weekends free, getting out there with everybody else, up on the trails. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area. Redwoods are there. Nothing is extraordinarily difficult hike-wise. The area is not like I'm climbing up over rock climbing and so forth. But I don't know that I ever got into the true peaks that these watchers have been seen in. So unfortunately, in my time in the woods, I've never had the opportunity to come across one. Now, that doesn't mean they're not real, but my skeptical mind tends to want to go to the science of the things that it could be first. That's how I operate. That's how I approach paranormal investigations. Like, what could it be first before I say something's paranormal, or it's or instead of saying it's a ghost. So I want to take the things that it could be away and eliminate them first, and then try to figure out what it is after that. And the next slide. So, going out here in the space, being out here in the wild like this, a lot of things can come through your mind. The idea that you are, just heightened. I will be honest with all of you. I don't have a lot of sensitivity when it comes to the paranormal, but I know people who do. And I'm wondering if the phenomenon is better exposed or has better visibility to be exposed to those with greater sensitivities than I. I've been out in investigations with individuals with sensitivity, individuals who are clearly psychic, and the things that come up consistently never cease to amaze me. And therefore, I will not say that this couldn't be a thing. I will just say that it didn't happen in my experiences there. Right. So if they are real, I can't help but wonder who or what they are and why they've been watching over this particular mountain range for so long, and what we could ever do to figure out who they are or what they are. So I'll leave it there. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, that image, that last one there, is pretty weird. You sort of have to take the hallucinations off the page when you can get pictures of things.
Sure.
So oxygen deprivation, and hallucinations. I think it's something else. Maybe that added to it, as into like seeing shadows in maybe woods or things like that. But seeing images like this, if you can photograph it, it's not a hallucination.
Sure.
So
that's fair. It's a good point.
I'm very skeptical. I think it's some sort of shadow with the sun behind it, but what is it? I don't know.
The interesting thing is that most of the images appear to generally be the same shape, and the answer to this question, Heather, is yes, essentially the same. And the peaks in Europe are much higher. We're talking about the Alps. So the elevation is extraordinarily higher than the coastal mountains on the west coast here in the U.S. But the phenomenon is the same. So given that they look the same, I mean, without this definition in some of them, of course, but the halo being the upper half or upper 2/3 of the shape, the peak figure at what appears to be a head at the top. We'll give it. We'll do the thing that we know, the shape that we know.
Right.
This looks like a person, kind of spread eagle, right? They're all basically the same. The only difference really is how high the arms are and how full in the body's, the shape of the body is.
Right.
But I could see where somebody would say there's somebody there looking at me who is wearing like a cloak or something, going back into the original tales from the indigenous peoples and then the early settlers.
And those people were looking for explanations when they didn't have science to back things up.
Mm-hmm. True.
So yes, they would be saying, "Oh, there's somebody watching over us," and
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting is that the indigenous folks never really thought it was anything to be afraid of.
Right.
And I think that if you kind of extend that, the calmness there, if there was fear, if there was worry or any kind of issue, it would have been projected into the conversations or the meetings with the Spanish explorers and the settlers coming in. That would have been known, like stay away. There'd be warnings, of some kind.
Right.
Unless they really didn't like those people.
Well, that was
and then I can't blame them, in that sense. But I think that calmness has been able to carry forward to not make this be something to be afraid of or fearful to, or anything that would be a danger. To not be in the mountains or in the area. So I think that's really kind of interesting too. Because that's what that sets the pace. Until something changes and the status quo is the same as it has been since then. When no one's been harmed, no one has any issues. Or it's something different. So I don't know if I'm willing to say paranormal overall, but I think it's an interesting phenomenon that, again, has been happening for 300 years and almost 350 years.
Yeah, I think it is a phenomena. Like, I think it is some sort of shadow reflection. So I tend to agree with you there. So, but it looks cool. I mean, anything with the rainbow silhouette, But Dark Watcher,
it's got to be. You got to call it something. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Nothing's been documented that way to say like a person has not disappeared. So I don't think anyone's made contact. They heed the warnings. I'll say this, I guess, too, because living out there, about stuff. I mean, the Mystery Spot, I did that episode because it's a known thing. Like it's huge.
Right.
People come from all over the place to come and experience the phenomenon there. The gravity changes, magnetism of the space there. The weird stuff that happens. The Dark Watchers weren't really like on the radar, as far as like, it's not an attraction. It's not something that's just commonly discussed or brought up, I had a lot of friends who were really active, mountain bikers, hikers, campers, that kind of stuff. And no one ever was like, hey, dude, be wary going to the woods, because there's things out there,
Right.
So it's kind of like a passive thing. But it's still, it depends where your imagination lets you go or where you want your imagination to go even, because it could be a thing if you say it is, and enough people start spreading the story. Yeah, this is how things go viral, right? All it's going to take is for somebody to say it, and the answer, to go to Bert's question is, somebody disappeared, and then that person isn't found, then it's possible, right? Or it's somewhat plausible that it was because of a Dark Watcher. But until something, comes into that kind of a line, it's just it's things people know about, but not overly concerned over.
Right.
That's kind of a benevolent thing, right? Like that's kind of cool. But yeah, people still do leave the offerings of fruits and nuts, flowers, whatnot, just to cover their tracks. It's like superstition. You spill the salt, you throw some over your shoulder, you don't step on the cracks. We go back to the episode too. All the stuff you can do to avoid it. So funny.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's all those things like there's the tree at the Hinsdale house. You know, people leave
Right. The
offerings in
offering
that,
tree. Yep.
and just everywhere. You know, a lot of these paranormal places have rooms to leave gifts for the spirits. Like St. Albans, there's leaving the cigarette and tobacco for
Mhm.
the guy in the boiler room. There's the toy room in the sanatorium in New York that we were at. There's just
Yeah. Oh,
all you know,
there's cash all over the Conjuring house. You know, like
right.
offerings of just dollar bills everywhere.
Hmm.
Other trinkets on shelf, and like the library's littered. Every shelf has stuff in it. You know, everywhere, and every room in the house has something that's been left behind. Um, yeah, I get it. You know, and that is our, you know, it's our talisman of protection. You know, like if we put the offering out,
Right.
we're taught that that's going to protect us, or at least make us feel safe enough to continue whatever space we're doing there, whatever we're doing in the space, I should say.
Hmm.
So yeah, what do you guys think? You know, I wish we could all take a road trip, um, and go hang out in the mountains in the central coast of California. I say we go in the spring, right after the rain season ends, and it is the most vibrant green. It's not Ireland green, air lynches. I get it, but it is pretty beautiful up there. These mountains just shine at that time. Absolutely beautiful space. What do you think, Chad? With road trip?
Sure.
Why
Can we
not?
fly though? Can we fly? It's
Well,
a
I
long.
mean, I don't know. We won't be able to see the world's largest ball of twine if we fly.
That's true.
You know, the world's largest artichoke is actually there in Castroville, which is just down the coast. It's in the line of the mountain. So,
Okay.
um, you know, it's interesting because the western side of the mountains is still agricultural as well, and it's a highly it's kind of like here in Lancaster County. You know, there's a lot of agriculture, very fertile soil, artichokes aplenty out there. You know, like how we have mushrooms here in
Hmm.
Avondale, you know, in the area around Kennett Square and all. But that's the artichoke area. So whatever is special about the soil there makes them grow really well. But the world's largest artichoke, right downtown. It's not
Cool.
really an artichoke.
Okay.
Just don't try to eat it. So it is one of those things. Thank you. Um, that's the best part about road tripping, by the way, is the stuff along the way. It's not the destination; it's the
Right.
experience of getting there. So,
And the other things that you could go do while you're there.
true. Hey, there it is. It's just down the coast, or up the coast. There, Alcatraz is up the coast. We're just down the coast a bit.
Hmm.
It's an easy drive down the Route One, or the 101. Wait, what is it? It's PCH. PCH is Route One. I'm sorry. So easy drive down from San Francisco. And you get to pass Half Moon Bay across this really beautiful bridge. Fun stuff. All right, Chad. Well, I don't want to beleaguer any more than that, but that's it. Thanks for indulging me on this one, guys.
Hmm.
It was one that I came across, and I recall it being something from being in the area.
I
Um,
mean, there's some beautiful pictures from out there. Just looking at these,
oh,
like
absolutely.
they're like I think Jim commented that this was an amazing picture. You know, that's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So
This range, you know, is if you're on the western shore of it, you'll see the ocean as well. You know, from the distance, it's not like it's that far away. Kind of like in the Southern California when you're coming over um, from into the San Diego area from the west, you cross over the mountains there, and you can see the ocean. You know, from the peak
mhm.
when you come up across the tops, and it's just gorgeous. You know, it's still a good ways off, but you can definitely tell. You know, we don't have this on the East Coast. You know, the Appalachians are back far enough that we don't
Right,
get that kind of cool viewpoint. Um, and I can imagine being an early settler. You know, you're trudging along, use the Oregon Trail for example.
right.
You know, if you didn't die of dysentery and you made it that far, um,
Just
you know,
just to come across these vistas and
yeah, and see this, and it was like, okay, cool, it's well worth the trip. So,
hmm.
all right, sir. Well, what else we got?
Well, we've got some investigations coming up. One on Saturday.
That's right. Look
It was
out.
only it seems like 2 weeks ago we were there, and we're back again. So,
It's this year has been weird that way, right? With this monthly investigation thing. Now we're back
uh-huh.
and then back again this month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like 2 weeks and then 3 weeks and then 2 weeks, then
Yep.
a month.
Then a month.
All right.
So
I can't help but notice our September 7th date is still there as our final date for the year.
that's all
Any
that's
word from home
no,
office on that?
no, other than it was supposed to be up, and they thought last week, and it's now this week, and I checked earlier tonight, and there's still nothing there. So
All right.
keeping
No.
our fingers crossed because we've got some cool things.
It's true. That's it. You're the boob. I think you're spelling it the right way.
So, but we've
And I just became 7. Thank you, Jim.
some changes in our schedule because we shifted some dates around.
Yeah.
Amanda, I know you're going to like something you see on here, so here it is. Next week, I'm going to do Yuri because, well, not because, but my son is in Japan right now, so it's sort of came to my mind. I'm like, oh, I want to do this. I wanted to give Selma Mansion a little more time so I could do some more research on it, maybe get some pictures in person. Then, Jamie, you're doing Harper's Ferry,
Yep.
Hotel Hershey, and then La Seguinaba.
Yep.
And then I'm going to get Eastern State Penitentiary and do some research on that. I know they have stepped away from the paranormal realm with their mission statement. They're very clear about that on their website, but that doesn't mean we can't report about what people have already experienced. So,
True story.
um,
There's a lot of history.
I'm hoping to get over there and get some pictures of the space myself. And that's what they're focusing on is the history of Pennsylvania penitentiaries and penal facilities. So that's the schedule for the next couple of weeks. I can't believe we're talking about into July already.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but we have, well, guys, you don't know this, but we have a schedule. We have a Google Doc running, and I put up the rest of the year on it the other day. If you notice, all the dates for the rest of the year are on there, and nothing's filled beyond, I guess, July, somewhere in July now.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt weird not having to do the whole year because we're already 5 months in.
Right.
Like, how's this? Time just flies. I don't know.
So, Jim, I wish we could do live from Eastern State Penitentiary.
If there was a paranormal program still, I'm sure we could figure that out. But sadly, no. And it's unfortunately for us too. It's a good distance to get down there and get set up and everything. I don't know if it would work, even if
The
we
problem
could.
would be coming back.
Well, timeliness of getting there, like in the reasonable time too.
Yeah.
It's just with I don't know. I can't speak for exactly your schedule, but mine would be tight. But then again, you do all the setup anyway, so. But
Hey, speaking of that, we had a great time last week at the Commonweal. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So,
And shout out to Adriana and the team there. They're going to be open soon, another week or two. Hopefully, we can get back and do another visit with them and get the rest of the staff involved that couldn't make it last week to get some of their input on the experiences they're having. But yeah, and thanks for making that magic happen, Chad. It's all you, buddy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
it is when it works. It's always fun, having a guest who's uber excited, and Adriana certainly is that person, and I've known her for a long time, and I did not know this side of her at all. So that's very cool.
Well, I don't think she knew this side of her.
Oh, maybe so.
The paranormal stuff. So
yeah. And she's she's a rock star with all that she does, and now there's another attachment to this building, which is such a project to get to. This location, finding this location, getting it created out of what it was, and I don't want to imply that the place was falling down. It certainly wasn't necessarily that, but it wasn't in good shape either. But her and her team, fantastic work. So I hope everybody in the area get a chance to pop in and visit them, and maybe spend a little time with Charlie. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we've got our socials. Come out and see us this weekend if you can over at Boobies. should be a good experience. Always is fun. So
Yeah, and it's amazing. Every time we go, something happens. I always tell people nothing happens on demand, but it does seem like, and again, we talk about paying attention, using your senses, our equipment. People, of course, bring their own at times too, but, something always seems to happen. And that's really cool. That's
Yep.
the reason we keep coming back.
Yep.
All of us do this in the field. So
So
hope to see you soon.
yep. Any final thoughts tonight, Jamie?
Whew. I don't think. I'm looking forward to next week with your episode. So this is something I'm going to learn something this time. So
Okay.
with eerie. So I will try very hard not to do any peeking this week. I actually just make sure my next week's episode is ready to go. Yeah. So I hope we'll see you all back again soon.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yep. Yeah. As always, thank everybody for watching now and watching in the future as a rerun. So,
Yeah. Appreciate
Jamie,
it.
have a great week until I see you on Saturday.
Saturday it is. Got you there.
All right. Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.